The Galactic Council's fatal miscalculation. Admiral Kethvar stood before the massive holographic display showing the spiral arm of the galaxy where a small blue planet orbited an unremarkable yellow star. His four arms gestured dismissively at the floating image, while his mandibles clicked in what passed for laughter among his species. Around the circular chamber, representatives from dozens of alien civilizations watched with varying degrees of interest and amusement. "Honored delegates," Kethvar began, his translator converting his chittering language into the common tongue, "we have discovered a new species that calls itself human. They inhabit the third planet of a system they have designated as Sol. Our preliminary scans indicate a primitive civilization that has only recently achieved basic space flight." A ripple of what could only be described as condescending chuckles echoed through the chamber. The Zephyrian representative, a tall being with crystalline skin that shifted colors with his emotions, leaned forward in his chair. "How primitive are we talking about, Admiral? Are they still using chemical rockets?" "Indeed they are," Kethvar confirmed. "They have managed to establish a few small stations in orbit around their planet and have sent crude probes to nearby celestial bodies. Their technology is roughly equivalent to what most of our civilizations possessed 3,000 years ago." The Vorthon delegate, whose species resembled massive bears with 6 legs and telepathic abilities, projected his thoughts directly into the chamber's neural network. "Then why are we even discussing them? Surely they pose no threat to the established order." Kethvar's expression grew serious, and the hologram zoomed in on Earth, showing detailed scans of human military installations, cities, and industrial complexes. "That is where you would be mistaken, honored Vorthon. While their technology is primitive, their behavior patterns are concerning." The display shifted to show satellite footage of human conflicts throughout history. Battles raged across continents, massive explosions erupted from nuclear weapons tests, and scenes of humans fighting with desperate determination filled the air above the council chamber. "These humans," Kethvar continued, "are unlike any species we have encountered in our 10,000 years of galactic civilization. They are violent, unpredictable, and possess an alarming tendency toward what can only be described as suicidal bravery. Observe." The footage changed to show human soldiers charging across battlefields under impossible odds, rescue workers running into burning buildings, and explorers venturing into hostile environments that would kill most sentient beings. The council members shifted uncomfortably in their seats as they watched humans repeatedly choosing death over surrender. "Furthermore," the Admiral added, "their rate of technological advancement is unprecedented. In just 200 of their years, they have progressed from simple steam engines to splitting atoms and achieving spaceflight. Our xenobiologists estimate that at their current rate of development, they could pose a significant threat to galactic stability within the next 5 centuries. The Etherian representative, a being of pure energy contained within a crystalline matrix, pulsed with agitation. 500 years. That is barely a moment in cosmic terms. Surely the Council has faced aggressive species before." "None like this," Kethvar replied grimly. "Most aggressive species burn themselves out through internal conflict or destroy their home planets through resource depletion or nuclear warfare. These humans have somehow managed to survive multiple global conflicts and are showing increasing signs of planetary unity. They are beginning to see themselves not as separate tribes, but as a single species with a common destiny among the stars." The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. Throughout galactic history, the established civilizations had maintained their dominance by ensuring that emerging species either destroyed themselves or remained technologically stagnant. The few that managed to achieve interstellar capability were carefully managed and integrated into the existing power structure as junior partners. The Nexari Prime, whose species had ruled the galactic core for millennia, finally spoke with a voice like grinding stone. "What do you propose, Admiral?" Kethvar straightened to his full height, which was considerable even by galactic standards. "I propose that we act now, while we still can. A coordinated strike on their industrial centers would set them back centuries. We make it appear as though a natural disaster has befallen their planet. Solar flares, asteroid impacts, perhaps a pandemic. Their primitive medicine would be no match for an engineered plague." "You speak of genocide," the Zephyrian delegate observed, his crystalline skin darkening to deep purple. "I speak of necessity," Kethvar replied coldly. "Better to end a potential threat now than face a galactic war in 500 years. These humans have already demonstrated that they are willing to die rather than submit. How do you negotiate with beings who see death as preferable to defeat?" The Vorthon delegate projected another thought. "Perhaps we could guide their development, as we have done with other species. Slow their progress through subtle interference." "Impossible," Kethvar said, shaking all four of his heads. "Their curiosity is too great, their determination too strong. Any attempt at interference would only delay the inevitable while potentially revealing our existence. Once they know we exist, they will stop at nothing to reach us." The debate continued for hours, with various delegates proposing different approaches to the human problem. Some suggested immediate action, others counseled patience and observation. A few, primarily from species that had themselves been subjugated in the past, questioned whether humanity truly posed a threat or if they might prove valuable allies. Finally, the Nexari Prime called for order. "We have heard enough speculation. Admiral Kethvar, you will prepare a detailed military assessment of this human species. We want to know everything about their capabilities, their weaknesses, and their potential for resistance. The Council will reconvene in one standard galactic month to make a final decision." As the session adjourned and the various delegates filed out of the chamber, few noticed the small observation drone that had been recording everything from a hidden position near the ceiling. The drone belonged to the Kepler Research Station, a scientific outpost operated by a species called the Observers, who made it their business to monitor galactic affairs without interfering. Dr. Zara Chen, a human xenobiologist who had been working at the station under an exchange program disguised as a primitive species study, watched the recording with growing horror. She had come to the station 3 years ago as part of humanity's first attempt at interstellar diplomacy, though the rest of her species had no idea that first contact had already been made. The Observers had been studying humanity for decades, and Dr. Chen was part of their long-term assessment project. But now, as she watched the galactic powers casually discussing the extinction of her entire species, she knew that everything was about to change. Her hands trembled as she activated the quantum communicator that would send a message to Earth. The transmission would take months to reach home, but it was humanity's only warning. As she began to compose the message that would change the course of human history, she couldn't help but think that Admiral Kethvar was about to learn a hard lesson about underestimating humans. The message was simple. They're coming. Prepare for war. Back in the council chamber, Admiral Kethvar stood alone before the hologram of Earth, studying the blue planet that he was convinced would become the galaxy's greatest threat. He had spent his entire career dealing with primitive species, and in every case, the outcome had been the same. They either destroyed themselves or were quietly eliminated before they could become a problem. But as he watched the swirling clouds over Earth's surface, something nagged at the back of his mind. Perhaps it was the way the humans had survived every catastrophe their planet had thrown at them. Perhaps it was their inexplicable tendency to unite in the face of overwhelming odds, or perhaps it was simply the fact that they had achieved so much with so little time. Whatever it was, Admiral Kethvar had the uncomfortable feeling that he had just made a terrible mistake. But the wheels were already in motion, and the galactic war machine was beginning to turn its attention toward the small blue planet in the outer spiral arm. What the Admiral didn't know was that Dr. Chen's message had already been sent, and across the vast expanse of space, it raced toward Earth at faster-than-light speeds. Humanity was about to receive its first true test as a spacefaring civilization, and the galaxy was about to learn why humans had a saying, "Never start a fight with someone who has nothing left to lose." The stage was set for a conflict unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen, and at the center of it all was a species that most civilizations would have dismissed as primitive and harmless. But as events were about to prove, the most dangerous enemy is often the one you underestimate. Earth's impossible transformation. Dr. Sarah Martinez stared at the quantum communication array display in disbelief. The message from Dr. Chen had arrived 6 months ago, and since then, Earth had transformed in ways that defied every prediction the galactic powers had made about human capabilities. "Ma'am, we're receiving confirmation signals from Luna Base, Mars Colony, and the asteroid mining platforms," reported Lieutenant Commander Zhang from his position at the communications console. "All defensive positions are operational and ready." Sarah nodded, still amazed at what humanity had accomplished in such a short time. When Chen's warning had reached Earth, the initial response had been panic, followed by disbelief, and finally, something that surprised even the humans themselves: unity. The revelation that they were not alone in the universe and that hostile aliens were planning their extinction had done something unprecedented in human history. Every nation on Earth had immediately ceased all conflicts and combined their resources toward a single goal: survival. "Status report from the shipyards?" Sarah asked, turning to the tactical display that showed the solar system. "Construction is proceeding ahead of schedule," replied Dr. James Harrison, the former head of NASA, who now served as Director of Solar Defense. "We've completed 47 heavy cruisers, 23 dreadnoughts, and over 200 fighter squadrons. The Martian shipyards came online last month and are already producing vessels at triple our projected capacity." Sarah shook her head in wonder. It was impossible by every known standard of technological development. Species typically took centuries to transition from planetary to interstellar civilization, but humans had done it in months. The secret lay in humanity's greatest strength, their ability to adapt and innovate under pressure. When faced with extinction, humans had done what they always did when their backs were against the wall. They had gotten creative. The breakthrough had come when Dr. Chen's message included not just the warning, but also detailed scans of alien technology that the observers had collected over millennia. Human scientists, working around the clock in shifts that would have killed most alien species, had reverse-engineered technologies that should have taken decades to understand. "The fusion drives are performing better than expected," Harrison continued. "We're getting 30% more efficiency than the theoretical maximums. The engineering teams think it's because we're pushing the systems harder than any sane species would dare." That was another uniquely human trait that the galactic powers had failed to account for. While most civilizations built their technology with comfortable safety margins and operated well within established parameters, humans had a tendency to push everything to its absolute limits and then find ways to go beyond them. The quantum communicator chimed, and Dr. Chen's image appeared on the main screen. She looked exhausted but determined as she transmitted from her hidden location at the observer station. "Sarah, I've got updates on the galactic fleet movements," Chen began without preamble. "Admiral Kethvar has assembled a force of over 3,000 vessels from 12 different species. They're staging at Proxima Centauri and plan to attack in 2 weeks." 3,000 ships, Harrison muttered. "Our intelligence suggested they'd bring maybe 1,000 at most." "The Admiral is taking no chances," Chen replied. "But there's something else. The observer data shows that most galactic fleets are designed for intimidation and quick surrenders. They've never faced an enemy that fights back effectively. Their tactics are based on overwhelming force against primitive opponents who give up quickly. Sarah leaned forward in her command chair. You're saying they're not prepared for a real fight? Exactly. Most galactic wars end with one side surrendering after the first major engagement. They have no concept of what humans call total war. Their ships are powerful but not particularly well armored, and their crews have never faced an enemy willing to ram their vessels or use suicide tactics. Lieutenant Commander Zhang looked up from his console with a grim smile. Speaking of which, the Kamikaze Squadron reports ready for deployment. 200 ships crewed by volunteers who've equipped their vessels with antimatter charges. Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. The Kamikaze Squadron represented everything terrifying about human warfare compressed into a single unit. When faced with impossible odds, humans had a disturbing tendency to find ways to make the enemy pay an unacceptable price for victory. What about the defensive platforms? She asked. All 14,000 orbital defense stations are operational, Harrison reported, plus the asteroid fortresses and the Luna cannon array. The aliens are going to face firepower density unlike anything in recorded galactic history. The truth was that humans had turned their entire solar system into a fortress. Every asteroid of significant size had been hollowed out and converted into a weapons platform. The moon had been riddled with massive railgun installations that could accelerate projectiles to significant fractions of light speed. Even Earth itself had been ringed with defensive satellites equipped with weapons reverse-engineered from alien technology. There's something else, Chen continued, her expression becoming even more serious. I've been monitoring galactic communications, and there are rumors that some species are having second thoughts about this war. The Zephyrians are particularly nervous about attacking a species they've never seen fight. Good, Sarah replied. Fear is a weapon we can use. What else have you learned about their capabilities? Their shield technology is impressive but not adaptive. It's designed to absorb consistent energy patterns over time. The problem is, human weapons don't fire in consistent patterns. Your tendency to modify everything means that no two human ships have exactly the same weapon signatures. Harrison grinned. The maintenance nightmares that our engineers complain about are actually a tactical advantage? Exactly. Galactic military doctrine assumes standardized equipment and predictable tactics. They've never faced an enemy where every ship might have unique modifications and where commanders are encouraged to improvise. The communication was interrupted by an alert from the sensor array. Sarah's tactical officer, Commander Rodriguez, looked up with excitement in her eyes. Ma'am, we're detecting massive quantum signatures from the edge of the system. The galactic fleet has arrived. On the main display, space itself seemed to twist and bend as thousands of alien vessels emerged from faster-than-light travel. They formed up in precise formations that spoke of millennia of military tradition and overwhelming technological superiority. My God, Harrison whispered, they're beautiful. And they were. The alien vessels were works of art as much as war machines. Sleek curves and elegant designs that seemed to flow like living creatures through space. They radiated power and confidence, the products of civilizations that had conquered star systems before humans had invented agriculture. All human vessels, this is Admiral Martinez, Sarah announced on the fleet-wide channel. Remember what we're fighting for. Every one of those ships carries crews that voted to exterminate our species. They came here expecting to find primitives who would surrender at the first show of force. Instead, they're going to find out why humans have never been conquered by anyone or anything that didn't kill us first. The response from the human fleet was immediate and fierce. Across 200 ships, crews that represented every nation and culture on Earth roared their defiance into the void. These were people who had grown up hearing stories of their ancestors fighting impossible odds and winning through determination and sacrifice. Admiral Kethvar's flagship, a massive dreadnought the size of a small city, moved to the front of the galactic formation. His transmission reached the human fleet moments later. "Primitive humans," his translated voice echoed across space. "You will surrender immediately and submit to galactic authority. Your species will be relocated to a reservation world where you can live under proper supervision. Resistance is futile and will only result in unnecessary deaths." Sarah's response was broadcast on all frequencies, ensuring that every alien ship would receive it. "Admiral Kethvar, this is Admiral Sarah Martinez of the Human Solar Defense Force. Your request is denied. If you want our planet, you'll have to come and take it. But I warn you, humans don't surrender, we don't retreat, and we don't forgive. You started this fight, but we're going to finish it." The alien fleet began moving toward the inner solar system in perfect formation, their confidence unshaken by human defiance. After all, they had dealt with resistant species before, and the outcome was always the same. But as the first human ships accelerated toward the incoming fleet at velocities that should have killed their crews, Admiral Kethvar began to suspect that this battle would be unlike any he had fought before. The humans weren't fleeing or trying to negotiate. They were actually charging his vastly superior force with what appeared to be genuine eagerness for battle. For the first time in his long military career, Admiral Kethvar felt something he had never experienced before: uncertainty. And deep in the alien formation, other commanders were beginning to feel the same way as they watched the impossible sight of primitive humans attacking a force that should have sent them fleeing in terror. The battle for Earth was about to begin, and the galaxy was about to learn its first lesson in human warfare. Never give humans nothing left to lose. When the galaxy learned to fear, Admiral Kethvar watched in growing horror as the battle unfolded in ways no galactic military manual had ever predicted. The human fleet had made contact with his advance forces 3 hours ago, and already he had lost over 400 ships to an enemy that should have been swept aside in minutes. "Status report," he demanded, his forearms gripping the command chair as another massive explosion lit up the tactical display. "Sir, the humans are employing tactics we've never encountered," his tactical officer replied, her voice shaking with disbelief. "They're using their damaged ships as weapons, ramming our vessels at full velocity. We've lost 17 heavy cruisers to these suicide attacks alone." "Impossible," Kethvar chittered. "No sane species sacrifices valuable ships and trained personnel for minimal tactical advantage." "With respect, Admiral," another officer interjected, "I don't think these humans qualify as sane by galactic standards. They're doing things that violate every principle of civilized warfare." On the main display, a human destroyer that had lost its main engines was using its remaining maneuvering thrusters to position itself for a collision course with a Zephyrian battlecruiser. Instead of evacuating or surrendering, the human crew had armed their ship's entire ammunition stores and were manually piloting their vessel into the alien ship's shield generators. The resulting explosion vaporized both ships and damaged 3 others nearby. "They're treating individual battles like their entire war depends on the outcome," the tactical officer continued. "Every human ship fights as if retreat isn't an option." "That's because it isn't," Kethvar realized with growing dread. "They know we're here to exterminate them. They have nothing to fall back to and nowhere to run." The communication array crackled to life, and Admiral Martinez's voice filled the alien command center. Somehow the humans had broken through their encrypted communications. "Admiral Kethvar, I hope you're paying attention." Her voice was calm despite the chaos of battle surrounding her flagship. "You wanted to see what humans are capable of when we're fighting for our survival. Consider this a demonstration." As if responding to her words, the human defensive platforms throughout the solar system opened fire simultaneously. Thousands of railgun projectiles, laser arrays, and missile batteries created a storm of destruction that lit up space like a new sun. The precision was impossible, Somehow the humans were coordinating defensive fire across billions of kilometers with split-second timing. "How are they managing this level of coordination?" Kethvar demanded. "Sir, our intelligence was wrong about their communication technology," his science officer reported. "They're not using radio or laser communications. They've somehow created an instantaneous communication network that operates across their entire solar system. What the aliens didn't understand was that humanity's greatest advantage wasn't their technology or their tactics. It was their willingness to share information completely and trust each other absolutely when facing an external threat. Every human ship, platform, and installation was connected through quantum entanglement communicators, creating a hive mind level of coordination without sacrificing individual initiative. The battle raged for hours, and with each passing minute, Admiral Kethvar's confidence eroded further. His ships were more advanced, his crews better trained, and his numbers overwhelmingly superior. By every measure of military science, the Galactic Fleet should have achieved complete victory within the first hour. Instead, he was losing ships at an alarming rate, while the humans seemed to adapt to every tactic his forces employed. When his ships began targeting human vessels from maximum range, the humans developed new missile systems that could reach even further. When he tried concentrated bombardment, human ships scattered and used guerrilla tactics that turned the asteroid belt into a maze of ambushes. "Sir, we're receiving reports from all sectors," his communications officer announced with barely controlled panic. "The humans have somehow turned every piece of debris in their solar system into a potential weapon. They're using asteroid fragments as kinetic projectiles, and they've mined the entire approach vector to their planet." "Mined with what?" Kethvar asked, though he dreaded the answer. "Nuclear weapons, sir. Hundreds of thousands of them. Hidden throughout their solar system and activated by proximity sensors." The Admiral felt his confidence shatter completely. The humans hadn't just prepared for this war, they had turned their entire home system into a death trap designed specifically to kill invading fleets. They had anticipated everything and prepared countermeasures for tactics that most species had never even conceived. "Admiral," his tactical officer said quietly, "we're also receiving disturbing reports about human weapons effectiveness. Their projectile weapons are punching through our shields like they don't exist." "That's impossible. Our shield technology has protected galactic fleets for millennia." "Yes, sir, but human projectiles aren't following standard energy patterns. They're using kinetic penetrators made from materials we've never seen before, and they're accelerating them to velocities that should tear the projectiles apart. Somehow, these humans have found ways to violate physical laws that we thought were absolute." What the aliens couldn't understand was that humans had a fundamentally different approach to problem solving. Where galactic civilizations worked within established parameters and accepted limitations, humans saw every limitation as a challenge to overcome. When told that certain velocities would destroy a projectile, human engineers found ways to make projectiles that could survive those velocities. When told that certain materials couldn't exist, human scientists invented new materials. The communication array activated again, but this time it wasn't Admiral Martinez. The voice was older, speaking with the authority of someone accustomed to being obeyed. "Admiral Kethvar, this is Secretary General Harrison of the United Earth Defense Council. I'm speaking for every human being in this solar system when I say that we reject your demands for surrender." "Secretary General," Kethvar replied, trying to project confidence he no longer felt. "Your species is outnumbered and outgunned. Further resistance will only result in the complete destruction of your civilization." Harrison's laugh was cold and utterly without humor. "Admiral, you made a fundamental error when you decided to threaten humanity with extinction. You see, when humans have nothing left to lose, we become the most dangerous species in the universe. We don't just fight back, we make sure that anyone who threatens us regrets it for generations." As if to emphasize his point, a new wave of human ships emerged from behind Jupiter. But these weren't the destroyers and cruisers that had been fighting so far. These were massive vessels, clearly hastily converted from cargo ships and mining platforms, but bristling with weapons that made them mobile fortresses. "You've been fighting our military," Harrison continued. "Now you get to face our civilians." The new ships moved with the same reckless determination as the regular military vessels, but there was something even more terrifying about them. These were cargo haulers and mining ships crewed by ordinary people who had volunteered to fight for their species' survival. Teachers, engineers, miners, farmers, all of them now manning weapons of war with the grim determination of people protecting their homes and families. Admiral Kethvar realized with mounting horror that he wasn't just fighting a military force. He was fighting an entire civilization that had dedicated itself completely to his destruction. "Sir," his communications officer reported, "we're receiving surrender requests from 17 ships in the Zephyrian Squadron. They're requesting permission to withdraw from the battle." "Denied," Kethvar snapped. But even as he spoke, he could see more alien vessels beginning to pull back from the human formations. His alliance was crumbling as species that had never faced serious resistance began to question whether exterminating humanity was worth the cost. The final blow came when the humans revealed their ultimate weapon. From hidden positions throughout the asteroid belt, massive installations began to power up. These weren't ships or traditional weapons platforms. They were industrial facilities that had been converted into siege engines capable of accelerating projectiles to significant fractions of light speed. "Those are their mining operations," the science officer reported in disbelief. "They've turned their asteroid mining equipment into mass drivers capable of throwing projectiles across interstellar distances." The first volley from the human siege engines tore through the galactic fleet like it was made of paper. Ships that had survived thousands of years of warfare were vaporized instantly by projectiles moving at velocities that turned any impact into a fusion explosion. Admiral Kethvar watched his flagship's shields fail under impacts that registered energies equivalent to stellar output. Around him, his crew was abandoning their posts as the ship's hull began to buckle under forces no vessel had been designed to withstand. "All ships," he broadcast on the fleet emergency channel, "retreat to minimum safe distance. Prepare for immediate withdrawal from this system." But as his surviving ships tried to flee, they discovered that the humans had one final surprise waiting for them. The same faster-than-light communication network that allowed perfect coordination also allowed the humans to track every ship attempting to escape. Human vessels emerged from hyperspace at the exact coordinates where the alien ships were trying to retreat, turning every escape route into another battlefield. The battle that was supposed to be a simple extermination had become a rout. Of the 3,000 ships that had entered the Sol system with confident expectations of easy victory, fewer than half would survive to report back to the Galactic Council. As Admiral Kethvar's damaged flagship limped away from Earth's solar system, he transmitted one final message to the Galactic Council. "Do not engage the humans. Do not threaten the humans. Do not even approach their system without explicit permission. We have encountered something unprecedented in galactic history. A species that becomes more dangerous the more desperate they become. They have turned warfare into an art form that no civilized species can match." The transmission was received by councils throughout the galaxy, and within hours every major civilization had issued the same directive. Sol system was to be avoided at all costs. Humanity had earned something that no other species in galactic history had achieved, the respect born of absolute terror. On Earth, Admiral Martinez stood before the assembled leaders of humanity as reports of the galactic retreat reached the planet. The immediate threat was over, but everyone knew this was just the beginning. Humanity had announced its presence to the galaxy in the most dramatic way possible, and there would be consequences. Ma'am, Lieutenant Commander Jang reported, long-range sensors are detecting massive fleet movements throughout galactic space. It looks like every major power is reinforcing their home systems. Sarah nodded grimly. They're scared. Good. Fear will keep them from trying this again, at least for a while. Secretary General Harrison stepped forward to address the assembly. The galactic powers thought they could eliminate us before we became a threat. Instead, they've created exactly what they were trying to prevent. Humanity is now a major power, whether we want it to be or not. Dr. Chen's voice came through the quantum communicator from her position at the observer station. The galaxy is buzzing with discussions about humanity. Some species are calling for immediate alliance negotiations. Others are advocating for complete isolation from human space. But everyone agrees on one thing. Humans are unlike anything the galaxy has ever seen. Sarah looked out at the representatives of every nation on Earth, all of them now united in a way that would have been impossible before the alien threat. Then we'll show them what humans are really capable of, not just as warriors, but as explorers, scientists, and builders. We'll prove that the same qualities that make us dangerous also make us valuable allies. The age of human isolation was over. Earth had fought for its right to exist among the stars and won that right through blood and determination. Now came the harder task, building a future where humanity's unique qualities would be seen as assets rather than threats. But as celebration began across Earth and its colonies, one fact remained clear to everyone who had witnessed the battle. The galaxy had learned a valuable lesson about underestimating humans, and it was a lesson they would never forget.